The unveiling the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before Navigator Corax as his reconnaissance vessel drifted through the outer reaches of what the star charts labeled as System Sol 473. For 300 galactic cycles, this unremarkable yellow star and its 9 planets had been marked with the universal symbol for quarantine. The cosmic assembly had placed an impenetrable energy barrier around the entire system, sealing away the violent species that inhabited the third planet. They called themselves humans, and according to ancient records, they were deemed too dangerous to be allowed into civilized space. Corax adjusted his sensory appendages, focusing on the readings from his ship's long-range scanners. Something was wrong. The containment field that should have been glowing like a beacon across all spectrums was gone. Not weakened, not fluctuating, but completely absent. The Shadow Gate, as the humans had apparently named it, had vanished without a trace. His secondary brain processed the implications while his primary consciousness maintained ship operations. The cosmic assembly had dissolved nearly 50 cycles ago, torn apart by internal conflicts and resource wars. The various species that once maintained order had scattered to form new alliances and empires. The Dominion Collective, which Corax served, had been systematically claiming abandoned assembly installations and forgotten systems. Earth had been on their list of potential resource acquisitions, pending the natural decay of its containment field, which calculations suggested would take another 1,000 cycles. But now the field was gone, and Corax had to report this discovery. Immediately, he activated his quantum communicator, sending an encrypted message to Fleet Commander Thrakis aboard the Dominion's nearest battle station. The response came within minutes, faster than expected. The Dominion was very interested in Earth's sudden availability. 3 days later, Corax watched from a safe distance as the Dominion's third mining fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 vessels strong, it was a force designed to strip entire star systems of their valuable resources. The fleet included massive processor ships that could consume asteroids whole, military escorts bristling with plasma cannons, and slave transports ready to collect any useful biological specimens for the Dominion's labor camps. Fleet Commander Thrakis stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable consumption, studying the tactical displays with satisfaction. Earth floated there like a blue jewel, seemingly defenseless. Their primitive satellites orbited lazily. Their space station was barely larger than a cargo hauler, and there were no signs of military vessels anywhere in the system. The intelligence reports had been accurate. After 3 centuries of isolation, humanity had stagnated, perhaps even regressed. They still used chemical rockets and nuclear fission, technologies the Dominion had abandoned millennia ago. Thrakis ordered his fleet forward, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They passed the point where the Shadow Gate should have been, and he felt a moment of unease when his sensors detected residual quantum signatures that seemed impossibly complex. But the readings made no sense, showing energy patterns that violated several fundamental laws of physics as the Dominion understood them. He dismissed it as sensor malfunction caused by the barrier's collapse. As the fleet approached Earth's moon, every alarm on every ship suddenly screamed in unison. Thrakis whirled toward his tactical display as hundreds of contacts materialized. Throughout the system, ships were emerging from what appeared to be empty space, rising from the dark side of moons, accelerating out of asteroid fields where no technology should have been able to hide. The human vessels were nothing like the primitive craft their intelligence had predicted. These ships were sleek, angular constructions that seemed to bend light around them, making them difficult to focus on, even with direct visual observation. Before Thrakis could issue orders, his communication system activated without authorization. The screen filled with the image of a human male, middle-aged by their standards. wearing a uniform that bore no resemblance to any Earth military dress in their databases. Behind him was a bridge that looked more advanced than anything in the Dominion fleet, with holographic displays showing technology that Thrakus couldn't immediately identify. The human spoke in perfect Dominion standard, which should have been impossible. No human had ever left their system to learn galactic languages. "Commander Thrakus of the Dominion Collective 3rd Mining Fleet," the human said calmly. "I am Admiral James Richardson of the United Earth Defense Command. You have entered our sovereign space with hostile intent. This is your first and only warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Thrakus felt his scales ripple with indignation. These primitives dared to threaten him? He had enough firepower to crack their planet in half. "Admiral Richardson," he responded, letting his contempt show clearly. "You seem to be under the mistaken impression that your species has any power to make demands. We are here to claim your system's resources. Surrender now, and some of your population may be allowed to survive as servants of the Dominion." The human's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made Thrakus's survival instincts suddenly scream warnings. "Commander, I need you to understand something very important," Richardson said. "For 80 years, we have been watching you. We know about your mining operations on Kepler 442b. We know about your slave camps in the Vega system. We know about the 17 species you've driven to extinction for refusing to submit to your rule. That was impossible. Earth had been completely isolated. They couldn't know about events outside their barrier." Thrakus opened his mouth to respond, but Richardson continued. "The Shadow Gate was never a prison, Commander. It was camouflage, a hiding place where we could develop without interference, where we could study the galaxy without being seen. We learned your languages, your technologies, your weaknesses. We watched your wars, analyzed your tactics, and understood your limitations. And while you assumed we were withering away in isolation, we were preparing." Asterisk, the tactical display showed. More human ships appearing. 500, 1,000, 2,000. They kept materializing from nowhere, each one registering power signatures that made Thrakus's instruments flash error messages. These weren't ships built with stolen or borrowed technology. These were vessels that operated on entirely different principles, using sciences the Dominion had never discovered. "You see, Commander," Richardson continued, "humans have a peculiar trait. When we're backed into a corner, when we're told something is impossible, when we're faced with extinction, we don't give up. We adapt, we overcome, we evolve. The Shadow Gate gave us 80 years of uninterrupted development. 80 years to focus every resource, every brilliant mind, every ounce of determination on a single goal, being ready for the day the barrier fell." Thrakus watched in growing horror as his sensors finally began to understand what they were seeing. The human ships weren't just advanced. They were operating outside the normal constraints of physics. They moved without inertia, accelerated, without apparent thrust, and maintained energy shields that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We developed faster-than-light travel in 2003, Richardson said. "We solved zero-point energy extraction in 2019. We cracked the unified field theory in 2031. We built our first dimensional phase shifter in 2045. Every year since then, we've been constructing ships, training crews, and waiting for this moment." Asterisk. The human fleet had completely surrounded the Dominion forces. Thrakus realized with cold certainty that his 200 ships were outnumbered 10 to 1 by vessels that were technologically superior in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. The Dominion had conquered 100 systems. They had never retreated from primitives. "You're bluffing," Thrakus said, though his voice lacked conviction. "No species advances that quickly. It's impossible." Richardson smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Commander, we went from first flight to landing on our moon in 66 years, using nothing but chemical propulsion and slide rules. We split the atom barely understanding what we were doing. We connected our entire planet with information. Networks while you were still classifying us as semi-intelligent. Impossible is not a word that applies to humans. The reckoning the standoff lasted exactly 30 seconds before Thrakus made his fatal decision. Pride, arrogance, and 3 centuries of military dominance clouded his judgment. He ordered his fleet to attack formation, convinced that regardless of their numbers, the human ships couldn't possibly match the Dominion's combat experience. The first Dominion vessel to fire was a heavy cruiser named Consumption's Pride. Its plasma cannons launched brilliant streams of superheated matter toward the nearest human ship. The beams simply disappeared, absorbed by shields that operated on principles the Dominion computers couldn't analyze. The human vessel's response was swift and decisive. A single pulse of some unknown energy lanced out, and the Consumption's Pride ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but simply erased from reality as if it had never been. Admiral Richardson's face remained on the screen throughout the brief engagement. Commander, that was a warning shot. The next one won't be. Stand down your weapons and withdraw, or we will consider this a declaration of war against Earth and respond accordingly. Thrakus felt his heart racing. One shot, one impossible weapon discharge, and a ship that had served the Dominion for 200 cycles was gone. His tactical officers were screaming reports. The human weapons were manipulating space-time itself, creating localized tiers in reality that simply deleted matter from existence. Their shields operated in 11 dimensions simultaneously, making them effectively impervious to any weapon in the Dominion arsenal. But before Thrakus could respond, alerts flooded in from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing in dozens of systems simultaneously. They weren't attacking, just appearing, demonstrating that Earth's fleet wasn't confined to their home system. They had been conducting operations throughout the galaxy for years. Completely undetected, Doc Richardson spoke again, his tone shifting to something almost conversational. Commander, would you like to know the real reason the Cosmic Assembly quarantined Earth? It wasn't because we were primitive or violent. It was because they were terrified of our potential. You see, they had encountered other species like us before. Species that advanced too quickly, had solved problems in ways that shouldn't be possible, had refused to accept the limitations the universe seemed to impose. The screen split, showing historical footage that the Dominion had never seen. Ancient cosmic assembly sessions where Earth was discussed in fearful tones. Documents describing humanity's terrifying advancement rate. Projections showing that if left unchecked, humans would surpass every other species within centuries. They called it the Prometheus Protocol, Richardson explained. Any species showing our level of adaptive capability was to be immediately contained until they either destroyed themselves or evolved beyond their dangerous phase. But the Assembly made a crucial mistake. They assumed isolation would weaken us. Instead, it focused us. Every human on Earth knew we were prisoners. Every scientist, every engineer, every leader worked toward a single goal, breaking free and ensuring we could never be caged again. Thrakus watched helplessly as more reports came in. Human ships were appearing at every Dominion installation across 3 sectors. They weren't attacking, just watching, demonstrating their ability to strike anywhere at any time. The implications were staggering. Earth hadn't just broken free. They had already spread throughout the galaxy like an invisible web. 80 years ago, Richardson continued, when the Shadow Gate first appeared, humanity made a choice. We could rage against our imprisonment, exhaust ourselves trying to break through, or we could use the time to prepare. We chose preparation. We unified our planet within 5 years, ending all internal conflicts to focus on a common enemy. We restructured our entire civilization around technological advancement and military readiness. The screen showed images of Earth's transformation. Massive underground cities built to hide their true population from orbital surveillance. Generation ships launched in secret, using dimensional phase technology to pass through the barrier. Undetected. Research stations established on every body in their solar system, each one hidden using technologies that bent space around them. We studied every transmission that passed near our system, Richardson said. We learned about your wars, your alliances, your weaknesses. We knew the assembly would eventually fall. We predicted the rise of the Dominion Collective with 94% accuracy. We've been preparing for this specific encounter for 15 years. Thrakis felt his scales growing cold. You knew we were coming? We knew someone would come, Richardson replied. The galaxy sees Earth as a resource to be harvested. We've intercepted hundreds of communications discussing our fate. Some wanted to enslave us. Others wanted to exterminate us. A few even wanted to study us like laboratory specimens. Not one considered treating us as equals. The human's expression hardened. So we decided to remove any ambiguity about our position. Earth is not a resource. Humanity is not prey. We are a sovereign species, and we will defend ourselves with technologies you cannot comprehend and a determination you cannot break. Suddenly, new alerts flooded Thrakis' command center. The human ships that had appeared throughout Dominion space were doing something unprecedented. They were liberating the slave camps. Worlds that had been under Dominion control for centuries were being freed in minutes. The human technology was disabling Dominion control systems without firing. A shot, freeing billions of enslaved beings across dozens of systems. We're not conquerors, Commander, Richardson said. We don't want to rule the galaxy. But we will not tolerate slavery, genocide, or the exploitation of sentient beings. Consider this a demonstration of our capabilities and our intentions. Every species deserves freedom. Every world deserves sovereignty. And humanity will ensure both are respected. Thrakis watched his empire crumbling on the tactical displays. In less than an hour, Earth had demonstrated military superiority that couldn't be matched, freed a dozen enslaved species, and completely reshattered the galaxy's power structure. The Dominion Collective, which had ruled through fear and force, for 3 centuries, was being systematically dismantled by a species they had dismissed as primitives. You have a choice, Commander, Richardson said. You can withdraw your fleet, return to your homeworld, and begin negotiating a peaceful coexistence with Earth and the species we've liberated. Or you can continue this confrontation and watch your entire civilization disappear as quickly as that first ship did. We have no desire for unnecessary violence, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves and others. Thrakis looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology that defied their understanding of physics. The Dominion had ruled through superior force, but now they faced a force that was exponentially superior to their own. With great effort, Thrakis spoke the words that no Dominion commander had ever uttered. All ships, stand down weapons and begin withdrawal procedures. Set course for Dominion Prime. Richardson nodded. A wise decision, Commander. We'll be sending a diplomatic envoy to your homeworld within 7 days. I suggest you prepare your leadership for a very different galaxy than the one they're accustomed to ruling. As the Dominion fleet retreated, Thrakis couldn't help but ask one final question. Admiral, what happens now? What does humanity want? Richardson's answer was simple, but carried the weight of destiny. We want what we've always wanted, Commander. To explore, to learn, to grow, and to ensure that no species ever again faces the imprisonment we endured. The Shadow Gate is gone, and humanity is free. The galaxy will have to adapt to that reality. The transmission ended, and Thrakis was left staring at the tactical display, showing thousands of human ships spread throughout the system. Each one represented technologies and capabilities that shouldn't exist, created by a species that refused to accept the limitations others tried to impose on them. The Shadow Gate had indeed been released, but it hadn't been containing humanity. It had been containing the galaxy's assumptions about what was possible. Now those assumptions were shattered, and a new age was beginning. An age where humanity would reshape the very foundations of galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through the simple act of existing beyond the boundaries others had set for them. As his fleet jumped to hyperspace, Thrakis couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed the end of one era and the beginning of another. The humans were free, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.